As the clock struck midnight, Jake was alone on the platform of a forgotten train station. The air was thick with fog, and he could barely make out the faint glow of the track, lights stretching into the distance. He'd missed the last train, or so he thought, after a long day at work. Tired and frustrated, he sat down on the cold metal bench, hoping for some miracle that might take him home. The carriages were unlike anything he'd seen. Vintage seats, brass railings, and elegant lamps glowing softly on each table. Stepping inside, Jake noticed something odd. Every passenger was silent, staring straight ahead, dressed in styles that looked straight out of the 1920s. He moved cautiously, sitting near the back. The train passed familiar landmarks, but each one looked different, like he was seeing them from decades ago. He noticed old theaters, corner stores, and billboards, advertising movies and products from the 1920s. When he finally stepped off, the train disappeared into the fog behind him. The station was dark, with no lights or people, but in the distance, he saw a figure waving. It was an old man with a newspaper tucked under his arm. Jake approached, heart pounding, in shock. He looked up to ask the man more questions, but the station was empty. The fog cleared, and Jake found himself standing in front of his apartment building, as if he'd never left. The clock on his phone blinked, 12:01 a.m. Only a minute had passed. Suddenly, the ground beneath him trembled. Out of the mist, an old steam engine chugged toward him, its headlights piercing through the fog. Jake's heart raced. The station attendant had told him no more trains were coming, so he was stunned. The train came to a stop, doors hissing open, inviting him in. The train jolted to life, and as it glided along the track, he tried making conversation with the man across from him, but he got only a cold, distant look in response. It felt eerie, as if he'd stepped into another world. After what felt like hours, the train slowed, coming to a stop in a dimly lit station. The conductor walked through the car, his face shadowed under a cap, calling out, "End of the line!" Jake hesitated, feeling an overwhelming sense that he didn't belong here. "Son, you look lost," the man said, his voice a comforting rumble. He handed Jake the newspaper. Jake's hands trembled as he read the date at the top, 1923. His own face stared back at him from the obituaries section with a headline that chilled him to the core. Local man missing, presumed dead after boarding ghost train. From that night on, Jake never missed the last train home, and he never looked back when he stepped off,